Hey there, everybody. I am Adam McMath. I am the executive director and president of Black Alphabet, a not-for-profit Black LGBT organization, arts organization in Chicago. And our main event every year is our film festival in Chicago, but we have film festivals in Cincinnati, and we've done pop-up events in other locations. So check our website for events that may be coming near you when the pandemic is over. But today I am joined by Johanna. She is the writer, director, producer of Solene. Did I say the name right, Solene?
Solène.
Solene. So we're
It's
gonna
it's
just
French. It's French. It's French.
yeah. I'm the worst with pronunciation, so I knew I was gonna butcher
No,
it.
okay, it's okay.
So let's just jump right in. Uh, Doing my research about you, you've been in this business for 20 years now. So let's talk a little bit about that. What got you interested in being a part of an artist, and what made you stick with it? Because this is a very hard business to be in for 20 years.
Yeah, especially being on St. Croix, which has not a very huge film industry here. Um, but I gotta say, my excitement is because you guys are so organized. I've been in a lot of film festivals. My films are shown in different places, and of course, COVID puts it in a whole different spectrum, right?
It does.
This month, we're showing Solen at the Mexico Queer International Film Festival, where the Frida Kahlo Museum, they usually have screenings there. And so we were excited to go to Mexico, and then you guys accepted us as well. And that was just like really amazing. 20 years in the film industry and counting. I think it takes a lot of determination to stay in it from an independent world. I finished my first, I've always wanted to do narrative films. In college, my thing was I entered as a poli-sci major on a track to be an attorney, and saw that my films could be more powerful in helping, particularly people of color, and telling their stories. At that time, there were many people of color that were telling their stories. There was Julie Dash, there was Cheryl Donye, there was Marlon Riggs, who totally inspired me. Black is Black Ain't, Tongues Untied. That was my finale to say, I want to do this. Heli Garima out of Howard University. And then Quentin Tarantino came along, and seeing how he was totally changing the way to tell stories, right? With Samuel Jackson and Pulp Fiction. So I got to meet some of the Heli Garima at Ohio State University. I went to Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio. And that was really a great experience as far as filmmaking, because you had to learn it in a very traditional way, filmmaking, and then in a non-traditional way. So media for social change was a big deal. I got to live in different places in the Bay Area and experience different film festivals, and live and study in London as well. That's when I really knew that switching to an attorney was a thing I was going to do. Now I'm thinking about, maybe I should be getting that entertainment law degree, because this is a business of contracts as well. I mean, if anybody's watching that is a starting off filmmaker, I think that, I would say my best advice is know the legal aspect of it. Have a great entertainment attorney, which I do have. I've been working with the same team for over 20 years. And my thing about moving to St. Croix, back home to my native home, was that I was living in New York. I was working on a feature documentary called Sugar Pathways, which is out there. And people never heard the story about the Puerto Rican migration to the Virgin Islands. And I had just come off from producing a documentary on the Vieques bombings. I was really involved in the New York independent scene, the Black Documentary Collective, which was founded by a group of documentarians, and it's escaping my name, that I work with, and he produced a documentary on Clarence St. Clair Bourne. And he produced a documentary of Paul Robeson, Here I Stand. And great documentary. I was intern and researcher and production assistant on that. And I work with Susan Batson and her son Carl Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Are the trainers of
Mm-hmm.
Rihanna, Nicole Kidman. So I had a really strong network of filmmakers, of independent media, of working from like on Broadway rigging and cables to like working with big productions to little ones. And I was always on this track to produce. We're now currently working on producing a feature film called Silent Drip, that's going to be produced here on St. Croix. The thing is that my passion for film is telling our stories, telling our transgender stories, telling our Black and Latino stories. And because I'm Caribbean, we have a little twist coming from Chicago, and you're seeing the politics with Joe Biden and this whole conversation of Latinx and how we're being described. And, I, for example, am not just like one thing. I'm Black, I'm Indigenous, and I have Spanish roots, but I'm not from Spain. I'm Caribbean. I've been here, my ancestors have been here for hundreds and thousands of years. So that understanding of the Caribbean aspect, I think, is what I contribute to the film industry, right? Is the message that we are all connected. For example, as I told you, my grandmother migrated to Chicago in the 1940s. Had my parents not met in Chicago, fell in love in Chicago, moved back to St. Croix, I would have never been born, because my sister was born in Chicago. My family is a big Chicago, not now, we're from, Chi-Town, and I'm a big New Yorker. I'm the only New Yorker that's like, I love New York. That's my native place. And so there's sort of this rivalry, right? But I think the industry has gone, so wide for women, right? And people of color, that when I was in it for 20 years, it was not that way. It was really hard. It was very, very hard. The Sundance Film Festival was just coming up, and they were open to indie film festival, that blew up into big Hollywood scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. I think overall with any work that we love, we have to stick to it, and stick
Yeah.
to it until we see it to the end of the mission, which is what I have a mission and purpose, and that's my focus.
Amazing. So, in your 20 years of doing this, is there anybody that you've worked with that inspired you, that kind of really taught you something that you carry through to your work today?
Yeah. I met the producer for Marlon Riggs' Black is Black Ain't at
Mm-hmm.
Black Pride in DC,
Mm-hmm.
unexpectedly. And I was probably maybe 21 years old. And we've been in touch since then. I think with that particular person, what was inspiring was that at that age, throughout my 20s till my age today, her inviting me at an early age to be a part of the Directors Guild of America. And that was such a huge deal. I wasn't ready for it. And then being invited to be a part of the Producers Guild of America at 23 and 24 was like, well, I'm not ready, where am I going to get this money at 23, 24 when I'm in New York City and just, working on independent films or working at Susan Batson Studios and just trying to get as much as I can of education and independent filmmaking. I work with a really solid team. For example, I worked my mentor, and I believe mentorship is such a huge deal. And I wish I had mentors that were with me in the city when I was living there. But my mentor, who recently died last year, was Audre Lorde's former life partner, Dr. Gloria Joseph.
Mm.
She was my mentor in letters and writing, and she finished writing a book on Audre Lorde called The Wind is Spirit, and I ended up helping her edit that book. I mean, there was a huge community that was involved, but the way that book is told is through a filmmaker's point of view of how each chapter is told from every person that met Audre on St. Croix, because Audre Lorde passed in St. Croix in 1992. And Gloria passed this year. Last year, she was 92 years old. So, I think that for me, I meet a lot of different people and they all inspire me in different ways. But the groups that I work with very closely have been with me for many years. And so those are the people, and they're all much older than I am too. So they're constantly orientating me because to be a professional in this business, I think requires good mentorship and people that are constantly inspiring you. So for me, being as far away from the mainland, I'm reading. I watch a slew of movies. I'm connected. But this place gives me also the solitude I need to create, to write, and also to consult and mentor others.
Yeah, and speaking of mentorship, you actually teach as well. Uh, so
But Adam, you've been really studying me, man.
hey, I gotta do my research.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. Yeah.
So talk a little
Um,
bit about why you got into that and why you love that.
it's something that I've been in and out of, and my friends are professors. And one of them is like, Joe, you need to be doing this too. I think I get like, I just did a lecture, a Zoom lecture with CUNY students on Afro Latinx community and being Caribbean. And I just did, we're going to do another college tour. I hope to go to Chicago and do it as well. But I get such a thrill from meeting people and an excitement to share my story and to share a story that it's not told, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I get a real excitement and energy. So with my CUNY, I call my CUNY class, it's my friend's class, but um, we as young people, as people of many different ages, have so many hurdles to go through to survive, whether that's weather, whether that's economics, whether that's creativity, whether that's the consistency of hearing no's. And sometimes we hear a lot of yeses. But we, I think when I work with students of any age, I have a student right now who's probably 20 years older than I am.
Really?
And
Oh, okay.
and that's why ageism is such a thing that
Hmm.
we shouldn't be discriminatory because you don't know who you're learning from, right? And there's so much to give back and forth because I do believe in past life experiences. I do believe that we're
Hmm.
here for purposes. And so with my story, a lot of times we don't travel, right? I traveled. I've been to London. I've been to Kenya, but we don't travel. And so my story is about inspiring people not to give up, not to give up, to continue. And that's what this class with CUNY was all about, was the fear of leaving New York City to visit Puerto Rico for political reasons, right? Because our ideologies can also put us in a very narrow mind. And for
Hmm.
us as gay, lesbian, transgender, bi, etc., we have even a harder burden, right? To
Hmm.
survive, to exist, right? I come from a generation where it wasn't as open or accepted, right? Where to be gay also meant to be perverted, right? The
Hmm.
stigmatization of that. So to tell people not to give up, to travel, to get your passport, to know about the Caribbean, the migrations, to know as far as slavery, and not just Black slavery, but indigenous native slavery, indigenous Caribbean slavery, to see people like ourselves and see how we have loved each other for centuries, how we've been together for centuries, and that we're connected, even it's sometimes even beyond racial colors, right?
Hmm.
And so that's why I get such a thrill because, when I start talking like this, then there's a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the film. You mentioned being seen and traveling the world, and part of what inspired me about this film was that a lot of folks don't realize that uh, LGBT people of color are all over the world, uh, and your film shows that we're just not in the United States or Canada, but we're in the Virgin Islands as well. And so, what inspired you to make this particular film or write this film? And what kind of films that feature Latinx and Black LGBT people have you seen before that inspired you to kind of really tell that narrative that, hey, this is not just a United States thing, we're all over the place?
All right, well, let me answer that question that you kind of hit home for me, which was what film inspired me to write this, what, as far as Latinx Black love, right? Or because
Hmm.
it's so kind of like oxymoron, right?
Hmm.
Because it's like, if you're from the Caribbean, you could be Afro this and Afro that.
Hmm.
But I see where you're going with it, but I have to mention that.
Hmm.
Um, really, there wasn't anything for me. What really pushed me was the story of Carol, and Carol had just come out, and I really loved the sexiness about it and the subtlety of these two women in the 1950s. I liked the tenderness of it. And so when I was working with the actors, I made them watch a bunch of different movies. Some of them were like The Breaking Point with Keanu Reeves and Waves,
Hmm.
all of that, just so that they could see, what it meant to be surfers, and the way if we had funding and everything that in the world to make a feature film, then we would shoot it as really two women, one mega Hollywood woman and one mega athlete. And so these actors for me were that. They were the megas, right? And so for me, the message was women of color, Black women, Black Latina women on stand-up paddle. Because we never in the Caribbean, I see, or outside in popular culture when it comes to stand-up paddle, women of color on a paddle as an athlete.
Hmm.
And there's a Black surfers, Las Negras, Black surfers out of Latin America. But it's not something we see in popular culture. I think for me, it's an array of different movies and music. But for me, it's like the Pedro Almodovar movies are what I've been seeing since I was 16. And so when I see any Pedro Almodovar movie, I'm looking at how he's crafting his stories about LGBTX, Q, everyone's story within his story. So I've been watching his movies for forever. And I think those are also the drama of inspiration. I watch a lot of 1950 stuff. So when, whether you love him or not, I watch Alfred Hitchcock. And I say whether you love him or not because, he was kind of an exploiter of women, and, he was really
Hmm.
a blonde hair woman kind of stuff. But he was also the master of suspense. And so, when we first showed it in St. Croix, we were very nervous because it is the first lesbian LGBT short film made, and I think people were expecting a feature, and I was like, it's a short. And so let me back up and say that Solena is based on my personal life,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which is something I always forget to either say um, within the description of this of when film curators are looking at it, that I don't know, is that this is a true event. I had a cop stalker. I had, was dating someone that was on TV all the time. And this did happen to us, where this cop approached us, and and I'm giving it away, but instead of me, who was kind of more of a civilian, opening in my chest and being like, "Yo, what's up?" This person who was a local celebrity was like, "Yo, what's up?" And that kind of shifted um, our relationship in a bit, and also the relationship with that police officer, where I had to be tactful about how to deal with this person who I guess would not let go of following us around, or pulling people over and all of that. So, and this is a predominantly Black Latin island. We're all predominantly Black and brown people here. So And I say that because it's not an issue of white or black. This was an issue of stalking. And I think that one of the things I learned through this movie was that there is not enough discussion within our community about stalking and being involved with our partners and talking about advocacy, and how to stop stalkers, or even with our partners who we have domestic disputes. And so that's, I think those were the serious aspects of it. But I wanted to make a narrative film because, too, my background is so strong in documentary filmmaking. That I also wanted to show the level of my camera work, the level of telling a fictional story. And we did this we shot this maybe 6 months before the hurricane. Our last scenes were in June, and the hurricane Maria and Irma hit in September of 2017. So the endings of the film and the editing and the sound and all of that was done. The last pieces of editing were done with a generator. And no, we had no power, and to survive for me as an artist, as a filmmaker, I needed to have a sort of creative distraction as well. So the film carried on within the time period because we had to do other stuff. But that little short film was a lot of work, and I'm grateful to every person that worked with me on it, especially the actors. And, I wanted to have a lot of original clothing and bathing suits and makeup and all that. So we worked really hard to create something with what we had. And I hope that the audience loves it as much as we do, because we're proud of it, It's not easy to make a film, especially on a small island where you can't run to Apple store when your stuff breaks down.
Yeah, it's interesting that I feel like every artist has a moment, particularly on film sets, where they have to be creative. They have to just make it happen. And I think that's part of the fun, either during or after, when you think about it, of making films. Did you shoot the film yourself as well?
I did. I shot it. I edited it. I colorized it.
Oh, so you basically did the whole thing.
Yeah, I just didn't do the sound recording, and I did not do the sound mixing. That we did in Puerto Rico, and we had our separate sound person, and we had a team of 9 people that worked with us, and I think that's including the actors. And I think I'm just, like I said, I'm grateful to every person that rolled up their sleeve and said, let's do this movie. Because we shot this, again, you see a lot of beach shots and you see a lot of desert shots. So we were in the middle of nowhere with no power, also shooting in the middle of this beach desert, and they're like, all this is happening. And I used a lot of sunlight. My cousin is my camera guy and assistant, and we just collaborate together a lot. And at the time, we had a sound person that moved from, I think, New York / Minnesota to St. Croix. And then, we had our wardrobe, who just a talented, gifted human being. And then we had another person who they sell fans, and you see the fan and all of that, and they helped us get the stand-up paddle. So it was the community that I was involved in, and I'm still involved with them, chipped in too.
Very cool. So what's next for this film? What's going on moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, this film right now I've been writing. I think it's going to head towards a series. And it's just going to be a series of ongoing stories. So it's been an ongoing writing process, but that's what that's going to be. It's going to be a bigger, lot of fun, and the genre might change a tiny bit. It's going to be drama and romance, but that's where it's heading to. But right now, the team that I'm working with, we're working on a feature film, which I hope by next year it'll be completed, /COVID/ whatever happens. But so it won't be out until 2022, but I hope we can show it at your film festival.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yay.
hopefully we can see each other in person.
Well, we
That
got
year
to
too.
have it with St. Croix, so and maybe we can collaborate and bring you guys to do some sort of collaborative film festival over here.
That would be amazing. Would love to chat about that further. Um, Final question: What is what do you want people? I was going to say what's next for you, but you already explained that. What is something that you want people to walk away with in this film? And I want to preference this by for me, as you mentioned before, uh, the stalking aspect of the film, particularly as a black male in America by a police officer, we've all kind of felt uh, uh, monitored at times. But I've personally had a stalker situation, and for me, when I talked to my friends about it, they thought I was bragging about it. But there's nothing funny about it, as you know. But it's not, to me. It's not sexy. It's not cute. It's frightening, and you're kind of watching your back quite a bit. So, outside of that, what do you want people to walk away with after they watch this?
Well, I can see, to add to what you're saying, I can see how it can be taken out of context, right?
Hmm.
You will find police officers following you, but no, with this particular person, it was like, when I say we were connected, it was like this thing where the man would just not, stop, right? So I had to be very clever and approach like his higher peers, and for him to see me in a place of power, right? And that's
Mm,
different when you're living in a city or somewhere else. But that's also why it's so important to be so involved within our politics and our community and voting,
hmm.
because we have to be so clear on our rights. We are
Hmm.
we are someone. We're not nobodies. We are someone, and we are who we are as individuals, and we have power. You know, and so for what I would love is for people, first of all, to enjoy it, to see the beauty and
Mm,
sexuality of these two women, and how much these actors tried their best to convey the story that I wrote, um, and to for a minute, even though it's intense at in the middle, that you can have a second to just breathe and go to the Caribbean and just be in the Caribbean for 15 minutes.
yep. And I'll top that off with the film is beautiful.
Thank you.
Um, I love. I just love. And I was in the Virgin Islands this January. Love it. Love the scenery. Love the beaches. Love everything about it. So I hope
This,
that.
I have to say this, that
Sure.
we have to always remember that we're not just like a tourist place.
Right.
You know, we are people that live here. We love our culture and our community. We've given to the US and the world. And I will save my lecture, but when we have people like Arturo Schomburg, who's the founder of the Schomburg, his mom is from here. You know, the first Black millionaire recorded, Casper Holstein, is from St. Croix. And
Mm,
he was the founder of the numbers in New York City. He was also the philanthropist for the Harlem Renaissance. So, this isn't a place where seeds are grown and they go somewhere else to be trees as well, but we're all connected. So I want the beauty, and I want the story so that people can think about stalking, looking out for yourselves as a community. And I hope they enjoy the story. And thank you so much for interviewing me. I think this is awesome.
thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for so much for sharing your film with us. We will be in contact about collaborating in other ways.
That'll be great.
Um, and I thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.